because of people like Dr. R. Venkataramani, that judiciary has been functioning so well and so nice. Here, as we meet today morning, there are thousands of people, lakhs of people, queuing up for justice. And here at Parul University and at Faculty of Law, we are preparing students to be beacons of truth and justice in the future. My dear friends, let's once again give it up for our chief guest for the day, Dr. R. Venkataramani. Without further ado, can I please request our chief guest to come up on the stage for the ceremonial lighting of the lamp. I would request Dr. Devanshu to accompany our guest and other dignitaries to please join us on the stage.
शुभं करोति कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदा शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योति नमोऽस्तुते दिव्यादिव्यारे दीपत्कार कानि कुण्डलमोतिहार दिव्याला पाहून नमस्कार तिळाचे तेल कापसाची वार दिवा देवे देवा पाशी.
Thank you, sirs. Can I please request you to take your seats? Thank you. All right, sir. Thank you. Now that sir is on the stage, can I please request everyone to give it up for sir? And with that, I'm gonna. That's so nice of you, sir. Thank you so much. Dr. R. Venkataramani, he's a senior advocate and a learned attorney general for India and has 44 years of practice before the Honorable Supreme Court of India and before several high courts of the country. He's practiced in various branches of law, prominently constitutional law, arbitration law, law of indirect taxes, corporate and securities law, environmental law, law relating to education, land laws, criminal law, human rights law, consumer law, as well as law relating to services. He enrolled as an advocate in July 1977 in the Bar Council of Tamil Nadu and was designated as senior advocate by the Honorable Supreme Court of India in the year 1997. And he was appointed as a member of the Law Commission of India in 2010 and again for a further term in the year 2013. Dr. Venkataramani has represented several state governments, universities, central and state public sector undertakings in the Supreme Court and High Courts. Sir is appointed as the Attorney General for India on 28 September 2022 and he assumed the office as Attorney General for India on 1st October 2022. A couple of his representations have been for central government, several state governments, universities, public sector undertakings in the major litigations of the top court and high courts, and he continues to represent the Supreme Court in matters concerning its employees. His international engagements have been an invitation to speak at the workshop jointly organized by the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights and International Commission for Jurists at Geneva in March 2001. The workshop was designed to
peace and order, and most of all, love, compassion, care and concern for humanity, not only in India, but all over the globe. So my second can go to the university administration, the chancellor, the vice chancellor, and the faculty of law. So I thought about this lean and humble person to be before you to talk about something very big. Having been a private practitioner of law throughout my career, I never had any opportunity or and positions as a law officer at any level. I said I'm beginning to learn statecraft. Statecraft, I suppose you understand what I mean. To be part of the state, the government, and the institutions of governance. It's like part of being with a community at a different level. As a private practitioner of law, you reach out to an individual client whose concerns and interests have limited implications for the client. When you become part of the state and its institutions, you become part of a larger expanded area of concerns and issues. For statecraft, I suppose, conveys this very larger meaning. So when I've been asked to come to the university, I did not do my Google search about the university in order to, before I could say yes. I simply said yes, I'm coming. Only in the morning I began a little Google search to find out where I'm going. It's only to find out a GPS, nothing beyond that. So let me greet each and every one of you today morning to just come and share your attention to what I may be able to communicate with you. And my glimpses of my understanding of justice in India and justice across the globe. Whenever one is asked to visit a law school or a university to talk, the first difficulty is what subject one would talk, apart from taking classes, regular classes in constitutional law. So invariably it has happened to me by luck or otherwise that when somebody asks me a question, what subject will you choose, the subject pops up in my mind. Right? I tap my head and say, thank you so much. Right? So when this event was organized and was asked to talk about something, this subject just came to my mind. I have not really done what a student researcher would have done for talking on this subject. I've been visiting and very often going to National Judicial Academy in Bhopal for quite some time, ever since my venerable teacher, Professor Madhav Menon, who was the great visionary behind the revolution in legal education in India. Ever since he set up the Bangalore National Law School way back in 1988-89, I've been part of teaching and looking at legal education and its evolution and growth and spread. So Bhopal was a great place to go and address judges who come there for judicial training. And over a period of time, while going there and talking to students elsewhere, some of the very engaging thoughts and subjects revolve around what is justice and how does a nation manage doing a very honorable job in administration of justice. I suppose every student of law and every teacher who teaches law is ultimately concerned about and is preoccupied and moved and persuaded by thoughts relating to the quality of administration of justice. When I say quality, we are not merely looking at the infrastructure, or maybe not the legal framework, but something beyond that. When you enter the law school in the first year, now you're taught some of the basic subjects like the contract law or the civil procedure code or the criminal procedure code. And later on, of course, move into the more denser subjects of constitutional law. I call it a denser subject because what was constitutional law maybe 50 years ago, before independence, in other parts of the world, the US has almost more than 200 to 300 years of constitutional history. Different countries in Europe have lesser periods of constitutional history. India has about 75 years of constitutional history. It's a denser part, I call, because almost all subjects of law, domains of law, now converge through the constitutional lens and then spread out. It's like a time clock. You have a time clock. The hand moves on. It's like that. So, to that lens of constitutional law, everything passes up and goes down, up and down, like that. So the question of the quality of administration of justice is not merely a matter of concern for those in administration, but for we the people of India and all humanity elsewhere. So this subject of administration of justice, I think, must be a prime moving idea in the mind of every student of law. And any subject you touch, any statute you read, any judgment you come across and peruse, must always and ultimately deal with this question: has justice been done? Very often the answer is no. There are debates on this question. In every judgment which supports deliver, there are points of view. Not because the points of view may be ultimately right in the sense, in their own way, but because human beings, wired the way we are, do not see the same object the same way one sees that. Now, the way I may look at this auditorium, different from somebody else may looking at it. So the physical perception of an object just as may differ, because the way the eye catches an object, the mental perceptions of ideas and thoughts and reality also differs. And that's the beauty of a community and life. And in this beauty lies our ability to live together, to be able to share our concerns, our love, compassion, and all that together. And that's, I think, the nation always moves forward in being able to make this happen. As students of law, I suppose, while a 5-year law course brings you closer to a study of history, economics, political science, and so on and so forth. Unlike our generation of law students who just had an engagement with the statutes and case law and judgments, you have an opportunity now of being closer to social reality in a much more qualitatively different way. And that gives you an opportunity also to make and remake our social order in the best possible options available to us. So I thought, let me talk about, with this little lengthy, prelude, I thought, let me talk about doing complete justice. Before I deal with that subject, you go back in point of time in world history, maybe about just immediately and after the Second World War. The world is no longer what it was in 1947-48. After the cataclysmic world wars, humanity across the world, notwithstanding the European colonial powers still fighting to have their hegemony across the world, humanity, I thought, began to look at the world and the globe from different angles and perspectives. but you have two competing ideologies. A socialist ideology versus a non-socialist ideology competing with each other. And each one of them had their own claims to be right and wrong. And post-1948, you saw the globe divided into broadly two camps with ideological distinctions. And rightly or wrongly, a socialist camp thought that all answers to an egalitarian social order and a just social order, where every human being will have their just dessert, what they call it, would be made available. But as time went by, we found that that claim did not really bear fruit. So for a number of reasons which I don't propose to deal with at this point of time, so that will be a great travel into why certain claims onto being ultimately right about everything in life can break down. One lesson which I have learned as a student of law is, can anybody say that I have a final word on truth and justice? The answer is no. We only have answers which come closer, and in a closer competition, some answers fail, some answers stand good for some time, and after some time a new answer arises. And that is the dynamics of understanding truth and justice. The finality about anything on truth and justice is a false illusion. Every student of law must understand it. So as we study common law in England and the history of common law, and why it's called a common law, please pick up books like Great Justice Holmes on the common law, and then different writers have written about common law and its growth. Essentially means the freedom of the judicial institution to look at the deficiencies of a statute law or a written law in its ability to bring about very fair and reasonable answers to human issues and debates. So in that sense, there is always a question as to how far, in what direction we move forward. So as we move further in global history, when one ideology began to see the cracks within itself and could no longer provide satisfactory answers to some of the fundamental yearnings in human life, namely every one of us would like to be a free human being. That's why we cherish liberty, notwithstanding Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. In English history, it is said every Englishman is a king in his own castle, as they said. Liberty, Magna Carta talked about it. So every human civilization, without Magna Carta, was always talking about an individual liberty and the freedom of human beings, and why is it so valuable? And the question why is it so valuable is coupled with the question, how do we ensure that the importance and value of liberty and freedom is not mortgaged and jeopardized by any impeding factors in the social order. So today, by reason of this collapse or a failure of one ideology, we have a global situation when people from different parts of the globe, with their ability to be free human beings and then transfer, share, exchange ideas about what is good for each and every one of us in terms of trade or commerce or innovation and creativity. I suppose innovation, creativity, being free, and being able to share your ability to innovate and create in small and big ways, it doesn't matter. In every little measure we innovate and create, and we think freely about everything about life is important for every one of us. So the innovation and creativity is part of liberty. And then coupled with that is a claim that every one of us must have equal regard. I must regard you equally as I regard myself. So equal regard for each and every one of us, and again regardless of faith, religion, race, caste, and that's a big challenge. So innovation, creativity, freedom as part of liberty on the one hand, and the ability of human communities to be able to bring about equal regard and equality couple these two issues, I think, are contemporary challenges. How any economic, social, or a political order can guarantee a just balance between these two claims itself is a great issue and a challenge before every community and every nation. And more particularly when we are globally connected in ways which many of us did not know, maybe about 20, 30 years ago. The way we travel, the way we communicate and share, something very tremendous which has happened, the reason of technology and science. And before I go further into this question of doing complete test, I want to say something broadly that we connect the threads, we connect the dots. And doing complete justice, I may say something about the Indian Constitution, Article 142, and so on and so forth. I'll come to that. But before you do that, unless we see in a starry sky, you look at the stars and find out which star is there. And for ages, people across, civilizations have looked at the stars and find out how do we connect the stars. We talked about a Milky Way, we talked about, so many terrestrial patterns. Our old astronomy and astrological system are built on people's observation of looking at the stars. That's why Immanuel Kant, the German philosopher, talked about the starry skies above and the moral world within. The connection of dots and, things, very important for us as students of law, just as a student of science will do. So now we stand at a cross-section in human history when no nation can say that I can live in isolation. So we are connecting in more than one way. And how do we really make the best use of connections, globally and domestically, and while at the same time making the best use of connection, not in an exploitative way. In a sense, one nation shall no longer be able to colonize another nation, physically, geographically. So also our resources across the globe, we talk about global warming, we talk about sustainable development, and why do we talk about all of them? We talk about them not because there is some common danger, around all of us, but more profitably, I think we should talk about our ability to evolve systems and understandings where we don't exploitatively use resources of the community. That one part of the world suffers from deprivation and the other part of the world grows in its riches. So that's how we see the connection at the global level today. So no study of law will be, I think, complete unless we try to have this very comprehensive understanding of the law's relationship with the pursuit of happiness the United States Constitution talks about. The US Constitution says the pursuit of happiness will be guaranteed to every US citizen. But what is that happiness? Every civilization says, what can be your happiness? As material resources expand, as the needs of human beings are conditioned or determined by the market today, I appeal to students of law, Professor Michael Sandel, who teaches government, and is a professor of government at Harvard University. His wonderful lectures on Harvard lectures on justice, about 11 to 12 parts. You can watch them on YouTube. Very important insights on how a particular part of the world looks at market, capitalism, its growth, and the impediments it brings about in the pursuit of happiness. So when you talk of doing complete justice, let me begin with the last case the Supreme Court of India recently dealt with, and then try to travel back in point of time. The last case was about how do we bring about a closure of a matrimonial relationship which is irretrievably broken down. Every law mandates certain procedures. There is no law which will not have a procedural part about what will you do under the law. It could be a procedure for enforcement, it could be a procedure for the court, and so on and so forth. So in this context, this matrimonial law provided for a certain cooling period, and it is a mandatory cooling period before people who have fallen apart in their matrimonial life can probably begin a new chapter in their life. Or probably they'll come back again after the cooling period is over. And that is the wisdom of the law. And Supreme Court thought, looking at various judgments for a long period of time, as to whether we can avoid this cooling period. And we can bring about a closure of the friction and the rift among two human beings who are unable to be together for a variety of reasons. The court said we will probably, without saying so, the court came closer to saying that we will bring about a conclusion or a culmination of this drifting relationship, even though the law says you must wait for a certain period. Court says let us not wait for a certain period. We can make it happen more earlier, as even what the law says will not happen. Where does the Supreme Court get its power? So you go back again in point of time, the Union Carbide Corporation case was decided by the Supreme Court. Bhopal tragedy, all of us knew was something stupendous which happened in human history. And it so shook the conscience of the nation that we were not in a position to understand what is got to be done to deal with this very huge human tragedy. We did not have answers in the tort law. We did not have answers in the civil law. We did not have answers in the constitutional law. We are foreign players, and how do we really handle with them? The government, for diplomatic reasons and so on and so forth, said we'll enter into a settlement. And the settlement was questioned in the Supreme Court. As a settlement behind the backs of victims who suffered large number of unanswered questions. Settlement was questioned seriously in the Supreme Court. It's a beautiful judgment written to the Supreme Court. It's to do a great ride, let us do a small round. That's what the Supreme Court put it. The Supreme Court endorsed the settlement by giving a number of reasons. The long time that a court may take to have a long-drawn litigation in America or in India, and the uncertainty in the outcome of a litigation, and a wide range of factors such as were enumerated by the Supreme Court to say the settlement was fair and just. Beautiful reason for the Supreme Court saying we'll invoke Article 142 as a plenary power to do complete justice, and doing complete justice. And that happened way back in 1992, and then several rounds of further litigation. And last year, I had the opportunity to further persuade the Supreme Court to say that justice is yet to be done for the cause of the victims of the Bhopal tragedy. For some reason, mostly legal, maybe I would say very highly technically legal, the Supreme Court turned down our plea. I was asking myself a question in the first instance. When the Supreme Court said doing complete justice means I endorse the settlement, and if the Supreme Court were not later persuaded for the same reason for doing complete justice, to open up an unanswered tragedy, how do you really, look at them together? So we have some of these questions generally in administration of justice, which do not provide you a final and a very satisfactory answer. So when you therefore talk about doing complete justice, we're not merely looking at the powers of the court, let's say the Supreme Court or the Constitutional Article 142. As students of Civil Procedure Court, not only here, we have very old notions of justice according to conscience, right? Equity, good conscience, etc. You travel across any legal system in Africa and any part of the Commonwealth countries, you will have this principle of justice according to good conscience. And the Civil Procedure Court tells us every court has an inherent power for doing justice, complete justice. But when you come to the final court, the idea, the principles are vastly different from a court at a subordinate, at a primary level. But regardless of all that, between the first court and the final court, the questions that every student of law will keep asking is, how do I understand a given framework of a law? And in the application in a given situation, is there a final answer, the most satisfactory answer in doing justice? And if so, what are the impediments? What are the obstacles? What are the issues? And unless you focus your attention from that point of view. And that's the way I suppose one looks at every decided case law. And just to, by way of a digression, there are a few experiments made both in England and in Australia from a feminist point of view. So there have been some judgments written on certain important issues, and female academics and practitioners were requested to rewrite those judgments from what they may call a different point of view. So you have two important publications, and both in England and Australia, where judgments written by courts were rewritten by female scholars, academicians, and legal practitioners. Evaluation of this alternate publications, they may call it, tell us that there is a subtle change in perception, a little shift, a paradigm shift in understanding. And what does it tell us? I'm not really talking about from a feminist point of view. Suppose if I ask this audience of law students to pick up important judgments of the Supreme Court, particularly in Article 142, and rewrite them. It will be a wonderful exercise for each and every one of you. Pick up those judgments, rewrite them according to your understanding of complete justice, and then bring about a publication. You will see what a wide range of multiple and diverse points of view will arise. And therefore, that's why I started saying the question of complete justice is sometimes an ideal to be traced and traced and traced, but sometimes with no end. That does not mean that it's a delusion. There has to be complete justice at some point of time in every given case. So how do you therefore bring about this wonderful marriage between what has seemed to be seemingly impossible, but what can be made possible? I suppose I have studied law from understanding every subject of law from this point of view. Now let me give you a few examples. Again, one of the questions that's going to be asked, we may saw the question about which case had presented you most difficult times. Today, constitutional law virtually all over the globe informs every branch of law. There is no branch of law in any part of the world which is not infused by constitutional principles, rights and duties, human rights, so on and so forth. Therefore, even a procedure under the Criminal Procedure Code, an accused shall have a right to fair trial. So what is the right to fair trial? So you go back again to the origins of fair trial, both in US and other parts of the globe, and what India did with Article 13, guaranteeing a right to be represented by a lawyer of your own choice as a fundamental right. So Constitution virtually, occupies every field of law and every branch of law. The contract law is not free from a constitutional law dimensions. Supreme Court of India has laid on in several judgments how arbitrariness, or even in terms of a contract, or the way contractual obligations are built by state authorities, or even private parties, you can bring in element of fairness. So therefore I say constitutional law virtually occupies and informs and infuses every branch of law, and rightly so. So we have therefore a challenge. If tomorrow the Government of India were to enact an economic policy going ahead with further privatization and so on and so forth, and built on the idea that innovation and creativity is what brings about and makes possible wealth generation, resource generation. So the Government of India thinks they'll move forward on a certain further privatization issues. So we have questions again today, not only in India, of unemployment, of fair distribution of employment opportunities, resources being made available to people at various stages in their life to be able to make use of them. Our Constitution has a provision, says the ownership and control of the material resource of the community shall be so distributed as to subserve the common good. So somebody has an alternate point of view and says, no, it is going to defeat Article 39B and right to equality and the welfare of the working class. So these questions will confront you with finding out the best possible answers. In one such situation, while slightly different from what I'm trying to talk to you, there was a Adivasi family in this part of Gujarat, and they were detained. The woman was detained in custody, police custody, and she was brutally assaulted. And the husband was detained, very badly treated. She was sexually assaulted and all that. Question came as to whether they should pursue their legal remedies in the local court, magistrate's court. So long years ago in 1986, with an institution with whom I was associated. So they asked me what should be done in this case. I would have probably told them as a conservative lawyer, yeah, please go to the magistrate's court or apply to the sessions court, do whatever you want in the criminal procedure court. But I thought for some time and I said, no, that would not do complete justice to the cause of the woman. So we brought the matter to the Supreme Court and filed a 32 petition, saying here are fundamental rights to have justice and to be treated in a way that, contrary to the way she has been treated, is a fundamental right, Article 21. We elaborated so many things on that. Brought to the petition in Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court accepted this petition. I canvassed for a proposition that when our rights are violated during custodial, detentions, then I have a right to be compensated. So this idea was accepted in the Supreme Court, and now you will find over a period of time, these ideas have gained currency. The Supreme Court appointed a Commission of Inquiry, and on the basis of the report of the Commission of Inquiry, police officers who were responsible for this heinous crime, including people at the level of a district collector, were prosecuted. And within probably less than 2 years or so, since Supreme Court was monitoring the prosecution, 2 to 3 years or so, the whole criminal prosecution, trial, appeal, everything came to a close. The reason why I am citing this, the question as to what is complete is not merely a principle. It is a question of a process to be adopted, a process to be conceived, and a process which you can conceive from existing frameworks of law. And how do you conceive that? That's where lies your genius, your ability to comprehend a solution out of the box. So doing complete justice from a practitioner point of view, to look at what is an ordinary reality from an extraordinary point of view. That's the process of learning. I'll give another example recently. Students who got admissions to medical courses in Madhya Pradesh, there were large allegations that malpractices were employed by them in getting admissions. Their admissions were challenged. Corruption was alleged against the government officials at the medical colleges. Inquiry was undertaken. Well, the inquiries were on. The students, many of them had completed their medical course 4 years. People have gone into the registration card, and then they're almost about to get into a medical practitioner stage. So matter traveled up to Supreme Court. And 2 judges took a very interesting opposing point of view. What judge thought, if the students have spent a good part of their life in pursuing education, and that has become a wealth of the nation, their knowledge is now not only their knowledge, it is to be utilized for the community. Why should that wealth, that knowledge, should become a wasteful thing? Other guys thought, no, we have to go strictly by law. It's an admission process which is tainted by illegality. I am not looking at this knowledge issue. The matter was referred to a bench of 3 judges, and unfortunately, while I was trying to present a point of view, namely that the knowledge acquired by the students, I think has been rightly perceived to be a knowledge belonging to the community and must be profitably utilized. And you can invoke the power to do complete justice, to lay down a framework of understanding on this regard. The larger bench did not agree with me. Still they went ahead in a certain conventional notion of doing complete justice. So when it came to V.C. Mishra, who was the president of the Allahabad High Court Bar Association, and the allegation was that he vandalized the court proceeding at a particular point of time, and the judges were so terrorized that they could not hold the court. The matter travelled up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, in exercise of its contempt powers, said, I am suspending your practice for a certain period. In exercise of the contempt powers, it did so. Soon thereafter, the Supreme Court Bar Association took up the view and asked the court to review its judgment in V.C. Mishra. The Supreme Court now took a different view. I cannot use the contempt powers to suspend somebody from practice. That lies in the domain of the Advocates Act. The shift from the ability and the competence of the court to do within a particular legal framework and to a different legal framework was brought to the notice of the court. And therefore they said, no, we cannot use our 142 power to do complete justice, to suspend somebody from practice, even by invoking the contempt jurisdiction. So you will find the court, navigating sometimes very comfortably, and in their difficult situation to find a solution which can fit within the framework of the law. So, one asks the question, what is the repository of power of a final court to do complete justice? The U.S. Supreme Court, I think Justice Jackson, said that we are infallible because we are final. We are final not because we are infallible. The U.S. Supreme Court, the Supreme Court is final because it is final. Because it's final, it does not mean it is infallible. It can be fallible. So in a system where even the final courts are confronted with how do we pick up the best answer for a solution from within a legal framework. So the Supreme Court, the final courts are not free from the difficulties. But what can really happen is, and then as you look at all those judgments in Article 142, the court keeps asking question, well, equity is different from doing complete justice. Equity is part of an English common law. Equity follows law, so on and so forth, all those wonderful maxims. Court also says, I cannot travel beyond the law. I am bound by the law. Court also says we can only supplement the law, but we can't supplant it. These are ideas which the court invokes to explain its own position. So unlike courts below, which did not explain their position because they only act in accordance with the precedent. A court below, the Supreme Court or the High Court, they don't have an inherent power to go beyond precedents and the statutory framework. If you are talking about a succession law or a contract law, they can act only within the framework of the law and the precedents available under the law. You cannot invent. The ability to invent is available only to the final court of the law of every country. So today you will find across the globe, because of what one has seen about the global developments, where the idea of a constitution has become an entrenched part of the human psyche. Nobody would probably vote against having a constitution in any part of the world. You can do an exercise saying, would you like to have a country without a constitution? The answer would be no. But what would be the features of a constitution? The answers can be many. We are not concerned with that. Therefore, today, across the globe, the human psyche is profitably and I think rightly entrenched with the idea of being ruled by a constitution. That's why we talk of rule of law, etc. So given the situation, the final courts in every country will be confronted with this very difficult and complex question, as in a given case, what is complete justice? I suppose the court will be guided by a compendium of principles. The compendium of principles will be the expansive reading of a statute. How much expansively can read the statute? and looking at the depth and width of the rights regime available to us. You have seen as students of Indian constitutional law, Article 21 is virtually everything that the court has conceived has been, as we keep saying, put in the basket of Article 21. The basket of Article 21 is expanding. It includes a right to a clean environment, also a fundamental right to sleep. Right? So therefore, Article 21 is now so expansively read that everything about life is about our fundamental right to be free and our liberty to be secured. But many of these things happened in the Indian constitutional context because of two important developments. One is the shift from the A.K. Gopalan case long years ago into the Maneka Gandhi framework in 1978. When the Indian constitution was framed, Justice Frankfurter is said to be advised the constitution makers don't get into the due process of law problem which American constitutional history had faced. Don't put in due process anywhere in the constitution. We did not do so. You read the Constituent Assembly debates and how the drafting committee had recorded this issue in chronicles. So when A.K. Gopalan was detained under Defence of India rules, the answer was here is a procedure and the Defence of India rules, and all that Article 21 talks about is that no person's liberty shall be taken away except in accordance with the procedure established by law. Here is a procedure. So you have an answer to Article 21. The Supreme Court accepted that stand and said, yes, here is a procedure. We only look at the availability of a procedure. But when Maneka Gandhi complained about a passport being impounded, the court began to look at the whole question of procedure from an entirely different angle. He said, we will not really look at the procedure, we will not be satisfied with the procedure being shown to us. We would like to look into the fairness of the procedure, the reasonableness of the procedure, the justness of the procedure. So the fair, just and reasonable, that triumvirate of principles, which now run through the entirety of the Indian constitutional law. That's why every state action today in India will be governed by just, fair and reasonable concepts and principles. If they fail on that, then a state action is wrong. You will find a similar across the globe. Social courts in different parts of the world are beginning to expand on their understanding and their ability to be a student of law. I think there's a wonderful governments and state as institutions may have difficulty with these problems. They may have several positions to be taken against the utility or the invocation of the three-dimensional, application of constitutional law. It's important for them to say so. I'll just digress into something closely connected to political thoughts and then conclude my exchange of thoughts with you. In fact, I shared a paper which I wrote long ago for the National Judicial Academy on doing complete justice. Initially, I thought let me come and read it along with you. But then as I entered the auditorium, I changed my mind. I'm not reading it. I'll read some parts of it. I thought let me share my open mind with you. So we are going to talk about an open society. An open society where clash of ideas, community of ideas and feelings and so on and so forth mingle together in a free and undefined way, but in an orderly way. How do we make it possible? To free in an undefined way, but in an orderly way. Seemingly impossible. When all of us are given the freedom to do whatever we want, we don't define ourselves. I would like to do whatever I would like to do in a free atmosphere. Shout, scream, see our parliament, how parliamentarians behave. Not only in India, in different parts of the world. I've seen it in Hong Kong, I've seen it in friends in some of the Asian countries. So, how do you really make it happen? And what is its connection with doing complete justice? I don't propose to give answers to this question. I am opening up these questions to you for your own answers. And that's why I think students of law begin to explore the unexplored dimensions from one's individual point of view. A teacher can tell you, here is a judgment, read it. I read it in this way, you may read it in a different way, but beyond the reading of a judgment in a classroom, you may have to keep on thinking about how a judgment as a statement of law binding citizens' conduct is right, wrong, or it has to be like a chess coin on the chessboard, may have to be moved around. And that's the creativity element which I think students of law, practitioners of law, and teachers of law have. That's what I thought I would like to share with you today. Now this concluding part of it, namely that if across the globe all constitutional courts, apex courts have this expansive understanding of law and doing justice. Couple of problems, I think, which as you grow up in another 10, 15, 20 years and become managers of our social order, to use that expression, administrators and managers of our social order, we have problems of technology. Technology seems to be apparently our great guide today. We can travel to different parts of the globe in no time. We can communicate to people across the globe in no second, a nanosecond that they call it. What a wonderful thing to happen to ourselves. But hidden inside this technology are other issues. We would not probably look at social media the way we would look at a print media. We would not look at social media, we look at the visual media. We would also not probably look at my tiny little screen on my hand, every one of us carry, which make our life morning to evening, sometimes comfortable, sometimes miserable. So, unending, thoughts popping up on your mobile, which distracts your mind from being more confined to your own, sheltered self. So this technology invasion has a dual aspect. It has made our life vastly different and comfortable, but it has taken over our life. It has become, in a way, dictators of our life. Do we like it? Or do we have any choice? Perhaps we say we don't have a choice. But ultimately the human will, what you call a free will, the ability to make choices in life, if that is under challenge by reason of invasion of technology, I think it's going to be a matter of challenge even for doing complete justice in several areas of life. We are not able to perceive it today, but sooner or later we'll be called upon to perceive them. So therefore, let us look at some of these global developments a little more closely and do not take them for granted. Let us not take anything about technology for granted. I am not entering into the new debates on artificial intelligence, whether they will take over human societies. I have no fears about that at all as an individual. I don't think what we create will take over us. What we create will always be subordinate to us. There's no problem at all. They're very clear about that. I'm not talking like a scientist, but I'm talking like a human being with my ability to say what I will do and I will not do. So but there are other areas of life where this technology can make our choices very difficult. So yesterday I keep mentioning about the great piece of literature written by a writer called George Orwell. I don't know how many of you have read it. He's called 1984. Please read that, every one of you. He has written two important pieces of literature. One is called The Animal Farm, the other is 1984. That piece of literature was written at a point of time when socialism was in the ascendancy. And you have a lot of writings which have been written much later about what really happened within a socialist country and its governance. We all know that there was no liberty, no fundamental rights. If I ask a vote among you, that's whether you would like to live in a free India or in communist China, I don't know how many of you say, yes, we go to communist China. I have no idea about it at all. Many people say, yes, life is very safe and secure, everything is taken care of. I don't mind losing my liberty. I don't know whether how many people say that. So 1984 was written at a point of time when within the socialist regime, your liberty was always a question mark. He thought technology would so grow in a future point of time that humanity will be able to build a machine called a thought machine. Can you imagine what a thought machine can be? Now in this auditorium, if Orwell had been here and a scientist, he would have planted a machine which without nobody knowing it can read our thoughts. It can read our minds. He thought at a future point of time, such a thought machine can be probably designed, and how safe I am in my own mind. I can be in a prison house, but my mind is read by somebody thousands of miles away. Oh my God, my liberty is lost. A thought machine is slowly coming around us. That is where the technology inventions may become a thought machine. In a different way, it has already become a thought machine. So much of technology governs our life, dictates our choices. So in this context, we still have inequality. We still have claims to have equal regard and to have equal access to human resources and natural resources. Thus, every one of us think that I am equally placed in life like my neighbor, which is certainly great and good and important. Thus we talk about we the people of India having given to ourselves, right, so on and so on and so forth. Justice, social, political, economic. So the ability to do complete justice is not merely, finally in my point of view, is not merely a domain of the courts. It's a domain of all legal framework, of all institutions of governance, the parliament, the executive, and the citizens of India. So it's common engagement in understanding the challenges which are given to ourselves and to be able to participate in an equal regard of society. I think that alone will help us navigate emerging challenges in times to come. So when I refer to Article 142, I understand it's only a very small part of doing complete justice. It's a part of doing complete justice for the final court of the land. But before it reaches there, if there are failures elsewhere, deficiencies elsewhere in the social order, in governance, in parliament, in the law, how can there be a complete justice? The court cannot do by a magic wand to say I'm doing complete justice. So I thought I'd try to unfold before you today some ideas which you may receive with a certain understanding, a student of law. Since I thought I may read some parts of that written paper, I'll just read few paragraphs to complete my narrative today before I am told that I've taken too much of your time. I have my life partner with me. We have traveled together in life for long years, and it's been a great rewarding experience to be able to live together, human, male and female, and never have a feeling to fall apart. It's a great experience and a great feeling. I wish that the Bharatiya culture and values, which and value in a much more embedded way when today we have all kinds of other challenges. When I say that, I don't mean to say that I vote in favor of male inferiority. No, nothing like that. I would on a different day when we look at issues from an entirely different perspective. Maybe I deserve it for a future date. So in that context, and let me just read a few paragraphs of this paper. Elegance and beauty are mathematicians' prime quest. Both scientists and mathematicians endeavor to comprehend, express, and convey complex dimensions of reality in elegant and simple terms, equations or principles. E is equal to mc square, the great Einstein's theorem, is one such classic and famous expression of a whole lot of physical properties of the universe, but a grand, elegant, small, beautiful equation. The possibility of formulating such elegant forms is always a challenging task. The ability also to state a proposition about the objective world in final terms is contingent upon the deep mysteries of reality opening up itself from time to time for a blessed peep. Because blessed enough to have a peep into reality. The quest for finality in making statements about the world is an integral part of and so embedded in the human mind that it is reflected in all spheres of study and knowledge, administration of justice, and a constant striving to do better in law and justice are no strangers to this fundamental quest of human mind. There was a mathematician called Kurt Gödel, a Czech mathematician. Way back in 1930, he talked about an incompleteness theorem in mathematics. He also thought that there could be no complete truth machine from a mathematical point of view. You don't have to be students of mathematics to delve into it, but I suppose you can also look a bit at those dimensions. If a mathematician says that there can be no final truth machine in mathematics because every equation brings about another way of looking at it. So I suppose what Kurt Gödel talked about, the non-availability of a truth machine, is equally applicable to administration of justice. But the endeavor is always to come closer to knowing what is truth and good and fair and just. So I probably conclude my engagement with you today with this very sober thought, and that I suppose that every one of you from now on, now that I have opened up some doors of perception for you, but a door of exchange, So I suppose from now on you are able to look at every piece of law, every case you study, every statute you open up for understanding and debate, and every judgment you read, you look at from this point of view, how much of completeness of justice have I seen in these documents? Please engage yourself in this quest ever and ever, without, like Columbus thought he landed in India, but he landed somewhere else. He went again. So many of those seafarers, Columbus or Captain Cook or Magellan, all traveled all around the globe. They all thought they were going to reach somewhere. That push which kept them pushing towards discovering frontiers, endless frontiers, I suppose must lie within each and every student of law's heart. If it doesn't lie in your heart, then your study of law is mechanical, your study of law will be dry. If you're able to have that in your mind and heart, all of us are great explorers of justice. I understand that law is about exploring justice. And let me thank you for your very quiet and patient attention without raising a small little finger about the wisdom of my thoughts. I am so thankful to you, and I'm sure that the questions that are likely to be asked have the freedom to say no, yes, they would like to say. And I wish that every one of you here will have a great life ahead as part of what I may call as students of biblical history. You heard about Noah the Ark. So I understand the constitutional movement of every country is like a new Noah, and we are all part of a Noah the Ark, and we travel together. and be part of a great journey together in life, so that the next generation thereafter, God knows how long planet Earth will continue to live like this. Let us make it a planet Earth which will always remain like this, with its warmth and cold and seasons and rain, mountains and rivers. The beautiful thing, the little planet Earth has been made available to us by nature. Let us keep it alive. And they kept alive only by this never-ending quest for final justice. Thank you for your attention.
Can I request a standing ovation for Sir? Thank you so much, Sir, our Chief Guest for today. A very eloquent, enriching and enlightening session for all the students and everyone present in this hall, sir. Thank you so much for all those precise points that you've made today morning. And it now becomes very, very difficult for me for the next step of this program to now ask questions, because you've spoken so much about so many things, but I will not give up that easily. So if I may, sir, can I please join you and ask a few questions? Thank you so much, sir. एक बार फिर से सर के लिए जोरदार तालियां हो जाए. So, a very good morning to you once again, sir. And how are you feeling here today at Parul University this morning, sir?
The sheer expanse in the auditorium makes me feel very good. Number one. Sometimes the vastness of a space overtakes you. Right? So it's overtaken me. I'm so glad to be here. And as I talk, wherever I go, I have a very bad good habit. I keep looking at the way students listen to me. How many of them are sleeping, how many of them are attentive, and how many of them are speaking among themselves, maybe in good manner, I don't know. So I'm glad that that part of voting didn't seem to be in big numbers. And I found many of them were lending their ears to even what I may call my profane thoughts.
How nice of you, sir. And I can assure you that every person in this hall was 100% attentive, sir, because it's a privilege to listen to you, sir. And now a couple of questions that I'll be asking you. This is a culmination of questions that have come from different sectors, and some of them are my own. And as a layman, the first question that comes to my mind, of course it is nothing to do with the judiciary, but sir, India is a very hot and humid country. Why are we all wearing black coats in the courts?
No reason. There's no reason why we need to do that.
Can we find a petition for change?
The problem is, in spite of the resolutions in the Bar Council of India, and we still say real green. I wouldn't call it a colonial heritage, but something which hangs around us, like a family inheritance.
Well, thank God, so now the new court buildings are all AC, so I think at least that part is taken care of. But now coming to a slightly serious question. When the Section 377 was taken away and the decriminalization happened, a lot of people celebrated. But as the public opinion goes, when the same-sex marriages were not yet, given a recognition, then the public sentiment was a little different. What's your take on this?
How do I say anything without stating something about my personal position?
Right, sir.
As a lawyer, then I am not talking about my personal position. So I have to look at the social realities, the Constitution, the rights, claims towards rights. And even thereafter, you will have a point of view which is purely like a scientist point of view. The answer is no. The personal value system of a human being will always ultimately pop up an answer. So if you ask me a question as an individual, I say that all of us as human beings, if nature has brought about a certain state of affairs, We must have an ability to manage ourselves, whichever you would like to do that. So managing, making choices is ultimately at the level of your mind and what you consider as your bodily needs. Regardless of all that, our country has always looked at these things as something secondary to the pursuit of higher level of happiness and contentment in life. So it's not that India did not have the idea about this matter. The recent maybe 2 to 3 years of colonial rule or other religious in a heterosexual relationship or any other relationships, there is no relationship without a price being paid at all. Ultimately, we land into a situation when human frailties, human egos, and human conflicts will demand a price on your relationship. I'm looking at it from that point of view. Can society provide that kind of a framework where we will find a refuge, an answer? These are things to be evolved and debated over a period of time. So when I argue this matter, I only look at from a very limited point of view, namely that the particular legislation cannot be undone by the Supreme Court to provide an answer to a very large, complex issue of human life. And perhaps courts may have very narrow role to lay down certain rights parameters in these issues. One may ask then, if not court will do it, where is the recourse for a democratic or a dialogue, and how can we sincerely feel that Parliament or some other institution will look at them from an objective, dispassionate point of view? The answer may still be no. So then we need a continued dialogue and understanding, sharing, and exploring more and more ways, good ways of resolving these matters. The more fair, humane, good ways, tolerable ways, and therefore that's bound to be clashes of values and understandings. I am not sure how far. There are other darker sides of it which people talk about. I don't enter into the dialogue. There are a lot of other issues. I read about what's happening in US, in UK, in European countries, about the problems that arise in family relationships. Just it may arise in heterosexual relationships.
True.
So I don't see a binary, kind of dialogue on it. Ultimately, it's a question of how human beings want to live together. What are the certainties in their being able to be live together and manage their relationships? And who can guarantee the best possible, fruitful way of living together, except oneself? So we land into some issues which are not constitutional or cannot solve. It's something beyond that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for such candid and eloquent answers. And when we live in India and we talk about how India as a country has developed, in the past couple of years we've seen so many different types of scams. In particular, there's this Amrapali case that was much discussed. Now, do you think that the legal system can be strengthened to prevent such large-scale frauds which directly impact common people?
Let me ask a question. When did you pick up Amrapali?
So, sir, I am in a position to only ask questions but not give answers.
No, my answer will depend upon your answering this question.
Alright, so if
There's
we...
a context in which I am asking this question.
Right, so like I told you in the beginning, sir, these are the questions that have been selected out of a bank of a lot of questions that were put forward.
Okay.
And there's a reason why the name Amrapali case has been mentioned.
I still did not get your answer, but anyway, let me proceed to answer the question. More than 3 years ago, the Supreme Court had asked me to become the administrator of the Amrapali work. That's why I asked you this question. 3 years over now, we have been able to bring a more progressive resolution of the outstanding problems of home buyers. And as I looked at the law, I think we need to move away from the current system that we ought to have a reasonably good answer to these questions. is not merely a question of a consumer being deprived of a return in due course of time, not merely being an executive authority who will act as a supervisor of failures in performance of real estate projects. Because there is only one way of looking at it, a limited way of looking at that. So having been involved in looking at Amrapali from a different angle, and having been to some extent responsible for bringing it to a culmination at this point of time, I think India needs maybe another chapter for the real estate law, and not the current framework of law, which will have its own bottlenecks. I've talked about it to the government at some point of time. I hope we have a national debate on this question, because housing is something so important and fundamental. We have several actors involved in the process: banking agencies, private money lenders, and supervisors, local authorities, municipalities, panchayats. For instance, under the 7th Amendment, we have panchayats and municipalities also concerned with local housing. So housing, something is so fundamental to us. We need to have probably a housing law which will address different concerns of different sections of the community from different points of view.
So basically what you're trying to say, sir, is that maybe we need an upgradation or some addition in whatever is existing.
I'm visualizing a more comprehensive legal framework.
So you, in your keynote address, you were talking about AI and technology, and that you said that AI will not ever take over humanity or the human processes and all of that. And I really like that confidence. But slightly deviating from that point, sir, do you think that we can use more technology in the legal framework, in systems, in procedures, so that if I ever visit a lawyer's office, there are books and books. If you go to a court, there are files and files. Can we digitize all of that? I know that the process has already begun, but do you think it is possible ever to be a paperless court?
It's possible. Supreme Court is doing it in a big way. Many high courts are doing that. I always thought when you visit various high courts, with a huge volume of paper books lying here and there, chaotically managed, one would put it like that. Right? And then you visit government offices, the files are kept on everybody's tables. And I thought that, why are we doing this? Now we are getting solutions. Supreme Court is certainly doing it in a big way. Many courts, judges in Supreme Court, we are on a virtual platform. And the National Judicial Grid, which is now operationalized by Supreme Court, is going to expand its activities and scope. And I'm sure very soon, India will be a model for a National Judicial Grid operating. As a matter of pride, I must say that we have done much more in the digital field than even a country like the United States of America. Yes.
Just a very small addition to this, in a light-hearted way, sir. AI, artificial intelligence, is indeed taking over a couple of professions. So, like, we have an AI news anchor, we have an AI radio jockey, we have AI voiceovers and whatnot. Can we have an AI judge in the future?
There's a question to be asked. That if you want to have a paperless court, why don't you have a court without human beings? So then we have an idea that human beings are problematic people. Because we have a subjective, issues. So if you create a machine, that's why I mentioned about Kurt Godley, then George Orwell. So if you think a machine can become as objective as possible, but then who feeds the data into the machine? And how will the machine, work out and calibrate its data? Please, I don't know whether some debates on this question say that robots has no emotion, and many issues about human beings are all about emotion. But I suppose if, as human beings, we begin to lose our emotions, there's no problem. It's machines and machines. So if we don't mind becoming machine-like, we are more or less becoming machine-like in one way. So there's no problem about that. But as long as we think that the beautiful flowering dimension of human relationships is what makes life worth living. And otherwise we can become Robinson Crusoe in our own island with a Man Friday lying by our side. No issues at all.
Okay. Sir, in the light of the recent Ayodhya judgment, what is your take on it?
It all depends upon from which side of the prism you're looking at it. So if you want to say that I'm a secular country and government or institutions or governance, there is no role to play in that, you can have your say. But somebody I read recently saying that Indian secularism is the same as secularism in Europe. I just read it yesterday in some leading Muslim academician. It's not about secularism. And we bring about an issue like that as part of the cultural history of a country. And you want to celebrate a cultural history. Perhaps it could not have happened without a certain sacrifices being made in terms of what one perceives as a cultural history or history itself. Some sacrifices have been made. I call it sacrifices in the sense because if the Ayodhya judgment had not ended in that manner, it would have continued to have a lingering sense of distance between communities. At some point of time, whether A gives up or B gives up is a question of giving up. So if the giving up has happened by reason of a judgment, there's a lot of criticism over the judgment. I don't enter into that question at all. If the giving up has happened, I take it as a sacrifice and the giving up. Let us move forward. And if we're able to generate and look at this issue as a common binding pact among Indians, when we look at our ability to have equal regard for each and every one of our faiths, I look at it only from that point of view. I don't look at it sectorally. I don't look at it merely as a Hindu pride. I look at it as an event that has happened in Indian history, as a point of view when all Indians feel part of an event which we can write as a cultural history of a country. You may still have reservations about it from certain very narrow sectoral angles. And to continue to have reservations and our ability to look at the reservations is again a part of our national genius of being together. I look at it like that.
Well, that's true. So just to add to this, since you're talking about cultural history and culture, so what happens when there is a culture versus constitution? I mean, to put in perspective, maybe say the Sabarimala case or the Jallikattu debate. Do you think there is a debate there, or do you think it is what it is?
It's both. It's both a debate, and it's a debate because there are points of view which would either legitimately or otherwise would like to raise a debate. If legitimately when you look at it, there is a debate, good debate. You must have debates of this nature. There's a nice publication called 3000 Years of Indian Dissent. So Charvaka onwards, you dissent in our country. Go to any part of our country. There have been oppression, there have been migration, there have been amalgamation, mergers of faith, and so let this debate continue. I don't want to shun a debate, but the debate should be a debate where we are responsible for our debates. I would take responsibility for every word and a syllable of my debate. If I not become responsible, but I want to raise a debate because I want to have a debating country for the sake of having a debate. One looks at the title of Amartya Sen's book, Argumentative Indian. Right? We don't need to take you merely because we want an argument. Responsibility for everything we do, I think, is part of being civilized. We don't have a responsibility for a debate, then it's somewhere I have chased by or given up my own freedom and liberty. I've argued myself something else. I'm a little worried about that. That's
Fine, sir. So, when I talk of a courtroom drama being portrayed in a movie, the most epic or the most memorable line would be Tariq Pe Tariq, when Sunny Deol a couple of years ago had said in a film. Obviously, in the recent times, we have been talking about that. As a matter of fact, Honorable Home Minister Amit Shah also very recently used the same dialogue, Tariq Pe Tariq, in the Parliament, and said that we want to speed up the process because there are more than 5 crore pending cases in different courts. Are we really speeding up?
There are so many things which are happening in our country. The Tariq Pe Tariq debate is only a very superficial way of looking at it. The Home Minister mentioned about only to say that we need to move away from this understanding and what's happening in the court too. And now that this Tariq Pe Tariq happens in the same way in every court, right? Let me give examples of what happens in Supreme Court. Many of us really do not know, citizens of our country, but the Indian Supreme Court is the most heavily worked court in the world. So you have thousands of cases being filed here, month after month. And judges have to sit and read those briefs, understand them, and be able to give a few minutes of your time for counsel who would argue very passionately about the justness of their cause and say, yes, this is a matter worthy of being further considered by the court. So how do you think that the judges of the Supreme Court will work? Unlike what happens in the US Supreme Court, where they are more comfortable with maybe 1/100 of the workload of the Indian Supreme Court. So a lot of things are being done over a period of time to streamline, to ensure that there is expedition. But what happens is, like a stool which filters. There are cases which don't get filtered and remain. And what is opened up for our discussion is debate is those cases which don't get filtered and remain for a long period of time. But there are cases which get filtered and move from a trial court to Supreme Court, let's say within 2 years, 3 years, and even a lesser period of time. So those are the bulk of the cases. Those unfiltered cases remain for a number of reasons. And then we try to give answers. More courts, more judges, more institutions. And that's one way of looking at it. The Law Commission has grappled with the issue earlier several times. And the judges of the Supreme Court and the High Court every year meet and debate and look at how the ease of doing justice can be made more expansive. I should say many things are happening. But the sheer magnitude of the disputes in our country, nobody can stop that. So then we take it to a different aspect. That's why I said people's engagement in being able to understand the need for settling, resolving matters at a level before we go to the court. So the mediation law talks about pre-litigation mediation, compulsory, mandatory, directory, so on and so forth. So I suppose we spend more time on that, this pendency would become a lesser thorn on the flesh.
So one of the things that has been widely discussed in the media and amongst public is the abrogation of Section 370. May I know your opinion on that?
I argued in favor of abrogation in the Supreme Court, yes. I couldn't argue here in a different way, right? I stand by what I argued in the court, and I believe that you may go across the globe and see what happened in East European history in the recent times, when the previous, those nations were part of the Soviet bloc, which broke away, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Yugoslavia, Ukraine, so all those small countries which were earlier part of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, which have become free in their own way. Look at what's happening there. The infights, the conflicts, and the war. So can you find a legally satisfactory solution to all of them? Who will do that? Why would Russia keep fighting against Ukraine? For what purpose? So when history has progressed in a certain way, which made a legal solution fairly difficult and acceptable to all concerned, when history has moved in the direction, elsewhere for more than 75 years. Kashmir has moved in the direction where an easy, acceptable legal solution was just not possible. So you have to find a solution. So in the process, you might have reached something here or there. I say that they are condonable. They are condonable because to do a great, just good cause, as I said in the Union Carbide matter, to do a great, just a little wrong. Of course, parties and people may have a different point of view. I suppose the way it has been navigated was the only way available. There was no other way. So the test of the pudding is in eating.
Absolutely. Since this statement was a little light-hearted, can I also add that, as a layman, when we watch a courtroom drama, it's very different than what actually goes on in the courts, with the terms of how the lawyer is arguing, say later what are the judges saying, say later when the witnesses are coming. And what actually goes on, the procedural aspect is very, very different. So do you ever watch these movies and think, kya kar rahe ye log?
Unfortunately, I am not watching movies. I think I am deprived from that very lighter band. I wish I had a little more time to watch movies, to know more about the courtrooms ourselves from watching movies. Right? But I suppose you also enjoy watching now live streaming of the court proceedings, and probably would like to have a big laugh when you watch Amitabh Bachchan or somebody else, Akshay Kumar saying what is justice and all those courtroom dramas. So we have many Akshay Kumars and Amitabh Bachchans in Supreme Court also, right?
So before I take questions from the students and from the audience, this is something...
Once I am talking about only the Bollywood, we have the other heroes and heroines in the rest of the country who are equally, illuminating.
So I think that the list of those names, I think we should just put aside for the moment because that is too dangerous to take away. Sir, if you talk about CAA, do you think it aligns with India's international legal obligations? What is your take on that?
This question I would decline to answer at this point of time because the matter pending in Supreme Court. And what we want not to take is a larger social political question. These are very complicated issues. So the intersection of many issues. So I would take a liberty to say I will not answer this question.
Absolutely, sir. And with that, I'll take questions from the audience. If I can have a show of hands, we can send the mic to you and then you can ask a question to our chief guest today. Yes, please.
Good morning, sir. My name is Ashita Kasriwal, a student of LLB first year. My question to you that, in respect of the hijab law case, what is your perspective on the individual consumer rights, individual constitutional rights to religious freedom?
You're concerned about lawyers charging fees?
No.
What is your question? What's your problem?
Okay. So my question basically is that, what is your perspective on the hijab law case?
Why do you want to ask that question? Let me ask you a question. Why do you want to ask that question? What prompts you to ask that question?
So because I have read something about that, just a little bit, so I just wanted to know your perspective on that.
What did you read? See, this is a classroom dialogue. What did you read? And why it made you interested in asking this question? Are there any other matters which you have read and which did not seem very important? This seems to be important in the context of doing complete justice.
No, sir, nothing like that.
I'm sorry, we're having this in a dialogue, like a teacher and a student. Please go ahead and tell me.
So basically the topic was of constitution. So I just got a question that recently the hijab law case was there, and in regarding to that, religious to freedom, a constitutional right is there. That's why I related both the things and asked the question.
Let me further ask you one more question.
So if you ask questions to them, then no one will ask again questions.
question is not I've answered, but one general suggestion is an anecdote from my own as a student. There was a very well regarded, highly respected athlete then from Tamil Nadu, Mr. Govind Swaminathan. So he visited our Montessori Law College where I studied. I was in the second year. I stood up and asked a question after the lecture was over. He had a piercing eye and he looked at me and said, he said, ask me what's your name? I told him, good. Did you reflect before you asked this question? I didn't have an answer. Did you think as to which way we should frame a question? I said, no, sir. I said, the first thing a lawyer would have to do is to reflect. Before you give an answer or you give an answer, raise a question. I later realized that a very important thing because we do many things in life without reflecting. Right? Reflection is an important part or a training of being a lawyer. Let me try to answer it. I look at any right not in isolation. The right to have being a consumer or a right in any other situation. And why do you talk about rights at all? Why is certain rights more important, certain rights are not so important? So the importance of certain rights because they are so fundamentally important. I suppose every right, in a sense, is fundamental because you look at them, all of them as connected dots. We only divided them today. We have so divided them today as this right, that right, etc. That means compartmentalizing our own life. So today, from morning to night, everything in our life is a matter of choice. I buy a pen, I buy a piece of cloth, or I pick up a smartphone or an iPad, anything in life. These are choices about how do we make good our life comfortable and useful. But for these choices dictated by so many factors outside, every aspect of a choice is a matter of right. So that's why I mentioned to come back that the responsibility for our choice and the responsibility of those outsiders who create and generate our choices, both are equally important responsibilities. And when these responsibilities are properly discharged, the rights question becomes little more, softer question. So because we keep asking the rights questions from a very sectoral point of view, the responsibilities question disappears. So try to connect every aspect in our rights dialogue and see the wonderful connection.
So much.
Next question, please. Think before you ask the question.
Good morning, sir. My name is Mahesh Sharma, and it's a privilege to ask you a question, sir. So my question is that, as we know, 3 laws, criminal laws, are passed now. So what are your viewpoints on that? And what are the legal futures landscape of India on that? And any amendments, further amendments or legislation needed for that, in your opinion, for betterment or beneficiality?
I suppose we always think that whatever we do in the field of law is for betterment. Otherwise we would not do it. There's a presumption. But the presumption can be weakened and can be challenged. But when you say for betterment, Parliament looks at certain aspects of social issues. Sometimes they are selective aspects, sometimes they are very broad and general. So the betterment issue will be seen from that point of view. I suppose these new developments are for betterment in one sense. That the paradigm shift, as we call in science, the word paradigm itself was used in a big way by a historian of science, Thomas Kuhn. So that a paradigm means a certain framework of understanding. And scientists give up one way of understanding, move to a different way of understanding. With a different way, like from Newton to Einstein. So, which is true. So this paradigm shift is important. That as a society, we develop some old habits, something, and move towards certain new habits or organization. So I think there's an important shift in our, both in our criminal law and administration of justice in general.
Thank you, sir. You have announced a new phase of law.
But I'm not going to ask you a prize for your privilege of asking me a question.
Thank you, sir.
Next question, please.
Good afternoon, sir. This is Anashri, and I'm studying in first semester, that is first year of BA LLB. First of all, I would like to thank Palo School of Law for organizing such an eloquent panel discussion with an eminent personality like you, sir. It's an absolute honor for all of us to experience you here. My question for you for the noon is that how can we combat politics in serving and receiving justice? If I'm allowed to give an example of a case law, the very famous case of the late actor Sushant Singh Rajput. What are your views on that, sir?
I would reserve my views for a later day. Not because I don't have an answer. I'm wondering which answer would satisfy your curiosity. Because if you ask a question out of mere curiosity, then my curiosity was your curiosity. If you ask a question for anchoring an issue, then I would ask you to frame that issue, the reason which persuaded you to ask this question. What is the issue which you think will be answered, will be responded to by dealing with this question? What's that issue? Why is it so important for us? Why is Sushant Singh Rajput so important for us?
Sir, it's not about the personality that I'm asking about. The mere question or the curiosity I have as a law student pursuing law, and when I enter judiciary, having that vision of providing justice to a lot of people. People nowadays are actually losing faith on judiciary due to a lot of factors, politics being one of them. So for me, that curiosity arises that how can I combat that factor or that pillar of fear people have, or they have emerged with this fear in judiciary.
Well, you need to combat anything. When you need to combat anything. When you say you need to combat, you mean there are hostile, irreconcilable factors. Right? So I'm not wishing away from answering this question, but I thought it's better when you pick up certain words and certain ideas for the purpose of asking a question, please go a little more deeper into those words which you have used and find out whether they really are the correct set of words which may convey the idea which you want to convey, number one. For a judge, there's nothing like a combat. The ability to piece various dots, and what are they? Facts. Truth arising out of facts, which can very often be not necessarily a truth, and apply a certain principle of law, surrounded by precedents on that law. You are like a traveler. In every case, a judge, I suppose, is like a travel for a judge. So you given this space for me, and if I am a dancer on this dais, I will carefully know how do I dance. I measure my thought process. I measure my movements and emotions. So like a dancer, a judge, measures everything which is put before the court. So that is not exactly a combat, it's a travel, a journey. So if I take a class, so many people ask me, I take a class about Supreme Court just practice. One common question is, why do we find cases moving from a trial court to an appellate court to a high court and to a Supreme Court thereafter? And if a Supreme Court judge finally saying, yes, the trial judge is right. So other judges were wrong. Why? So that's the what called flexible dimensions which are always available in doing justice and being a judge. And as you get into that experience, you will know that what it really means. From an outside point of view, it may look very different. But you really become a judge, it will be very, very different. So I advise, since you have asked this question, you mark your career to become a judge, and then when you become a judge, wherever you are, even if I am not too old, please ask me this question once again.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
That is very gracious of you, sir. I can take one last question from the students before we proceed with the rest of the morning.
Good morning, sir. Sir, my name is Nidesh from second year LLB. Sir, before I say my question to you, sir, previously you answered my judge friend Mahesh question that the three recent bill poses a paradigm shift and the betterment from the legislative action. But sir, recently as we say the proposing amendments to the hit and run provisions, the motivation behind this provision is the increase in the penalties for the offenders. Do you really think that increasing the penalty will establish the deterrence for the offenders? And sir, if I go forward for the similar question, in your speech you have categorically used the expression like fairness and categorically of fairness and the justice. Do the balance of increasing the penalty will serve the purpose of fairness?
Let's say when the English people send their convicts to set up a penal colony in New Zealand and Australia, and send our own freedom fighters to Andaman. So, when they send their own convicts to New Zealand and Australia to set up their colonies, one of the first cases which happened in Australia was when a convict ship landed in Australia, in New South Wales. It was found that the two convicts who were married while they were convicts in England, they were married. Their baggage did not reach New South Wales along with the ship. This family had nothing to live upon. They asked the captain to convene a court. And the first court on a penal colony was convened by the captain of the ship. And the captain ruled in favor of these convicts and said the administrators of this voyage were responsible for this error, and they were entitled to compensation. A book is written on that subject called Rule of Law in a Penal Colony. So the English people, when they were so glorious about the rule of law in a penal colony, they never thought about rule of law in Andaman when they sent our own freedom fighters to be, in jails for a long period of time. Convicts in Andaman, I recently read, built out their own jails. So they dug their own graves. Why I'm talking about? We're talking about fairness. Fairness is sometimes relative. It can be never absolute. It is dictated by context. It is dictated by a wide set of factors. But ultimately, fairness is about balancing. Now, as we move into a new technology-invaded life that we were talking about, globally connected, very silent, unseen factors working in various walks of life. Wrongs and crimes can be committed in more than one way. So we need to have a more expansive understanding of our criminal law, and also coupled with certainly fairness. So I look at this development from not from a very conservative or traditional point of view, but what's important for us is to keep on asking questions about the width and the depth of fairness in a particular context. And you But from a legal framework, you can't have individual answer, individual sense of fairness. A law is a generality. And a law works as a generality, and in individual case, the law may not measure up to the highest standards of fairness. So in individual case, it may fail. And that's where the court may intervene, lawyers may intervene and say the failure of fairness. So therefore, we have to balance between a larger generality of fairness that we built into a law, and even thereafter the failure or the defect of a law in its operation in a given case. So the whole law of tort has grown in that way, right? Though not it is called fairness. It is just. That's why we have old Roman maxim, where there is a right, there is a remedy. You be just, you be remedial. Right? So you pick up Broom's Legal Maxims book on this Latin maxim and go through all of them. You'll find some very good answers there.
Thank you, sir. I think we also wanted to emphasize on will stricter laws or higher fines, will they ensure the adherence to law? I think that is what you also wanted to ask.
But we still don't have an experience of it. The question of deterrence is a very vexed question. So, when Nirbhaya happened, we all clamored for very strong and strict penalties, death penalty for sexual assault. Justice Verma's report, they talked about that. But one way of looking at criminal law is that it is essentially grounded in certain moral values, but now into more social, economic and political values. The law of crimes has moved away from old set of criminal conduct. So we have something called a blame. A conduct is blameworthy. And by a penal code we say this conduct is blameworthy. How many of us read a penal code before we transact transactions every day? We don't. But all of us know that it is wrong to commit murder, it is wrong to commit rape, it is wrong to commit being a cheat. All of it is something so fundamental moral values. But then beyond blame, there is something called a censure. So if somebody commits trespass as a wrong in tort, we don't give a certificate of wrongness about trespass being committed. If somebody commits an offense, then that person becomes a convict. And actually it becomes part of one's life. It becomes part of a history. The censure part of it is written on your forehead, not in other areas of law. So blame, censure, disapproval, all these have a certain effect on deterrence. But criminologists have debated whether deterrence really works. The answer is yes and no. We enter into human nature. That's why Indian philosophy taught about the gunas of life. Right? So it's a different approach to psychology. Maybe we can benefit from that side.
And finally, sir, can I request you to sort of leave a message for students, especially this room is filled with law students. So can I request you to give them a message, if you may, for a successful career in the judiciary or on the legal front?
You know, somebody long ago in Greek mythology was told a Pandora's box was opened. Right? It becomes unmanageable. So a message that can be given is, be careful of things in your life which later you cannot manage. Be careful of thoughts in your life which will be difficult to manage later in your life. But be free with ideas which are fair and just for everybody. Be free with commitment to truth, care and compassion. Care, compassion and truth. Mahatma Gandhi practiced all that. So that's why we talk about truth on violence. I think study of law is related to each and every aspect of this value. So if there is no truth in your pursuit of law and study of law, then I suppose we are a complete failure. If you have no compassion, then you not really understood the depths of law. And if you're not wedded to non-violence, then we don't talk about fairness. Fairness is all about non-violence. Non-violence in your thought, non-violence in your understanding, non-violence in your language, non-violence in your conduct. I think when law is not able to come close to that, truth or non-violence, law fails. Operation of law fails. So these are the values of life which I think, which a good human being will have. And I suppose lawyers are required to practice these values at a very higher level. And as you practice them and feel the importance of practicing them, you will feel that you have chosen law as the best career for your life. But if you're not able to pursue these values, you can be a good lawyer, a very successful lawyer, earning tons of money. But I say you will not be a good lawyer. A good lawyer is not necessarily a monetarily successful lawyer.
Right, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Can we have a huge round of applause for sir? And also there are some students from our own Parul University who we wish to be felicitated by you. So if you permit, can I now announce the names, sir? Thank you so much, sir. And now very quickly, these are names of students who will be now felicitated from the stage. Can I also request Dr. Devanshu to join sir on the stage for this felicitation? Legal excellence in every hue. Best researcher, best memorial, best delegate, best speaker at Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar National Youth Parliament organized by Chandigarh University. BA LLB 5th year student Jaideep Fendoria. Mood Court Masteros, celebrating the excellence in mood court performance. Mohammad Shimab Hassan, Sakshi Singh, Vidya Casey, BA LLB second year students. They are runner-up in National Mood Court Competition 2023, organized by Sri Vaishnav Institute of Law and Forensic Science. These are your mood court masters. The entire team, Sakshi, Vidya and Mohammad Sima. Up next, legal next innovators. Law Splat, an innovative platform to bring the courtroom to classroom. The team, Ashish Kumar, Anushka Singh, Megha Meena and Deep Kothari. Law Splat, the legal startup. Now the voice of democracy. Different achievements. Kalyan Singh Bhati, Best Parliamentarian Award at State Level Youth Parliament. Sonalika Nigam, Award for Best Speaker at Sri Baba Sahib Bhimrao Ambedkar National Youth Parliament. Vidit Kumar, Best Entry in Debate Competition, organized by Department of Legal Affairs, Ministry of Law and Justice. Secured the first position in Times of India Public Speaking Competition. Kuda Kose. Finally, first in state round in Times of India Public Speaking Competition, Theophilus. And now can I request Dr. Devanshu to felicitate our chief guest for the day, Dr. Venkataramani. Just like Dr. Venkataramani had also mentioned that he's here with his better half, can I please request Dr. Parul to felicitate the ma'am? Can we please request both of you to join us here on the stage? Requesting Dr. Parul to felicitate the madam who's here with us every morning with our chief guest. This is Venkataramani. And before we break for this morning, can I request our chief guest to leave a few words of wisdom for us on the signature board, sir, for the students and for Parul University, for everyone to read, for this memorable morning that you've shared with us. Indeed, a very enriching and a wonderful Sunday morning. Can I please request everyone present here to give a standing ovation to Sir for sharing such valuable words of wisdom with us and for his precious time spent here at Parul University. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your presence. And before we depart from this hall, can I request everyone to join us in the national anthem? Can I please request the console to play the national anthem? Can we have the national anthem?
अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय जय जय
so much. Thank you everyone for being present here this morning. I wish you a great day ahead. My name is Kshitij. I'm signing off.
You have a word of appreciation for that. He had the freedom to not answer my question.